FBI searches Trump's Florida home as part of presidential records probe. Yes. So let's get right into this article here. So Palm Beach, Florida, August 8th, Reuters. So former President Donald Trump said FBI agents raided his Mar-a-Lago estate on Monday and broke into his safe in what his son acknowledged was part of an investigation into Trump's removal of official presidential records from the White House to his Florida resort. So the reason why this just stood out to me so much was because, like, regardless of what you want to say about, you know, how you feel about Donald Trump, whether you love him, whether you hate him, whether you're like lukewarm on him, like I pretty much am, right? It's like it's whatever to me. This is significant when you have a former U.S. president having his home being raided by the goddamn FBI, right? Like this takes like we haven't seen anything like this as far as I know. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like since Richard Nixon and Watergate, as far as like the government, the state saying, hey, the president is a criminal. I mean, because you don't do stuff like this unless there's some type of like wrongdoing or criminal activity on the part of the president. And so this is just, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna dig a little bit into my conspiracy bag here, because I do listen to Alex Jones and I always take what he says with a grain of salt, right? But you know, if you listen to Alex Jones, then you know he has this big thing again about, you know, this new world order situation. And one of the things he talks about as far as like America's involvement in this is that like the FBI is almost like one of the arms of the American section of the New World Order, right? Like the FBI is kind of like the goons, so to speak, for, you know, the United States chapter of the New World Order. And so when you see this FBI searches Trump's Florida home as part, right? It like when I see it, because again, I'll listen to Alex Jones, but now I kind of just put it to the side because a lot of the shit that he says sounds so outlandish. But then when you see stuff like this, and it's like, didn't he talk about how FBI was like, right? and it's just like it. And then on top of that, just the way Trump was so demonized and attacked within mainstream media, right? Obviously, the powers that be were completely against Donald Trump, right? And again, this is whether you love him or hate him, that's just what it was. And so when I see stuff like this and I connect the dots and I remember the different, like, I don't even want to say conspiracies, but really more so theories and you know, the opinions and perspectives that I've seen put forth by people, you know, like Alex Jones, or even goddamn people like Gutex, you know, like the fighting game guy, you know, some of the shit that he posts on Twitter and shit. You know, I see it and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but I don't know. But then stuff like this happens and I'm like, okay, there might be something to all this craziness. But let's continue and see what the hell is going on. So the unprecedented search of a former president's home would mark a significant escalation into the records investigation. And already, like look at the wording there. The unprecedented search. Like, this was major, man. I can't believe, and we've already kind of moved on from it, but this was like huge, which is one of several probes Trump is facing from his time in office and in private business. The U.S. Justice Department declined to comment on the search, which Trump in a statement called a raid and said involved a large group of FBI agents. The FBI's headquarters in Washington and his field office in Miami both declined to comment. No comment. We ain't saying nothing, right? I mean, this is just suspect, man. And so the U.S. Justice Department, because, you know, narratives are always important in the way you word things. The U.S. Justice Department declined to comment on the search. So for them, it's a search. Trump calls it a raid, right? And so, like, already you have like this Because search and raid are just different, right? And so again, it's about how you spin it. You see one side spinning the story one way and the other is spinning it the other way. And it's like, how do you really look at it, you know? And I think that's gonna be big moving into the future, right? Because I believe when you look at the battle of ideas and whatnot, you know, in our society right now, narratives are so important, and how you word something. Like, you could take something, and I'll just throw out like a completely random figure just off the top of my head. Let me just dig in the bag real quick. Let me just dig in Tucker Carlson, right? Just take, boom. Tucker Carlson, he gets caught up in like some type of scandal or controversy, right? And it's like, you could take that and spin it however you want. Like, you could make it look like a big deal when it isn't, or you could trivialize it when it's a big deal. And I see so much of that as far as like the news, as far as the media, social media and whatnot. It's so important. That's why you got to do your own research. That's why you got to investigate things and not just look at the headlines of something and just think that's what it is. Eric Trump, one of the former president's adult children, told Fox News the search concerned boxes of documents that Trump brought with him from the White House, and that his father has been cooperating with the National Archives on the matter for months. So obviously you got to wonder, like, what were in those boxes of like what type of documents were in those boxes? Because on the surface, it doesn't seem like it would be a big deal, right? You're the president, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of things that you got to read over and look at. You know, on the surface, what's the big deal as far as like removing documents from, you know, I would think that maybe they're worried that it's like some classified stuff or like sensitive information. But then you could also say that maybe Trump just accumulated a lot of documents that were of interest to him that might not be of that might not necessarily be of threat to like national security or something like that. A source familiar with the matter also confirmed to Reuters, and excuse me if I'm saying that wrong. Routers. I'm gonna say Reuters. The raid appeared to be tied to Trump's removal of classified records from the White House. So there you go. Now, are they classified or are they not? And I think obviously I would say Trump would probably deny that. Right, but we would have no idea. Trump said the estate is currently under siege, raided, and occupied. He did not say why the raid took place. After working and cooperating with the relevant government agencies, this unannounced raid on my home was not necessary or appropriate, Trump said, adding, they even broke into my safe. Trump was not present at the time as he was in New York on Monday. Fox News Digital reported publishing a photo of Trump that a Fox reporter said showed him leaving Trump Tower. Trump, who has made his club in Palm Beach his home since leaving the White House in January 2021, has generally spent summers at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, because Mar-a-Lago typically closes for the summer. A federal law called the U.S. Presidential Records Act requires the preservation of memos, letters, notes, emails, faxes, and other written communications related to a president's official duties. Any search of a private residence would have to be approved by a judge after the investigating law enforcement agency demonstrated probable cause that a search was justified. It almost certainly would also be approved by FBI Director Christopher Wray, a Trump appointee, and his boss, Attorney General Merrick Garland, who was appointed by Trump's successor and political rival, President Joe Biden. So that's interesting. So it was approved by FBI Director Christopher Wray, a Trump appointee. So this is someone that Trump selected, but his boss, Attorney General Merrick Garland, who was appointed by Trump's successor and political rival. So even though Trump has an appointee within the FBI who, might be working in his favor, the guy over him is working for or was appointed by Joe Biden. So there you see kind of the hierarchy there of, okay, well, Trump has a man in the FBI, but so does Joe Biden, and his guy is above Trump's appointees. So that's kind of interesting. Democratic supporters of Biden have criticized Garland for being overly cautious in investigating Trump over his attempts to overturn his 2020 election loss to Biden. A White House official said Biden was not giving advance notice of the search and referred queries to the Justice Department. Make no mistake, the Attorney General had to authorize this, said Philip Halpern, a former federal prosecutor who specialized in public corruption cases, adding that Wray and a host of prosecutors would also be involved. This is as big a deal as you can have, and every single person in the chain would have had to sign off on this, Halpern said. Trump supporters have accused the Democrats of weaponizing the federal bureaucracy to target Trump, even as Biden has attempted to distance himself from the Justice Department. So this goes on to talk about missing records. In February, archivists, I don't know every word. I don't know how to pronounce every word in the world, man. David Ferrero told U.S. House lawmakers that the National Archives and Records Administration had been in communication with Trump throughout 2021 about the return of 15 boxes of records. He eventually returned them in January 2022. Had been in communication with Trump throughout 2021 about the return of 15 boxes of records. Okay, and then he returned them. At the time, the National Archives was still conducting an inventory, but noted some of the boxes contain items marked as classified national security information. Trump previously confirmed that he had agreed to return certain records to the archives, calling it an ordinary and routine process. He also claimed the archives did not find anything. The Justice Department launched an early-stage investigation into Trump's removal of records to the Florida estate. A source familiar with the matter said in April, Laura Trump, the former president's daughter-in-law, said he only removed mementos that he was legally authorized to take. Look, my father-in-law, as anybody knows who's been around him a lot, loves to save things like newspaper clippings, magazine clippings, photographs, documents that he had every authority to take from the White House, Laura Trump told Fox News. So this could be an issue because again, this is what I was talking about earlier, where you're living in the White House, you're living your whole life in the White House. So you're gonna have emails that don't necessarily pertain to presidential duties. You're going to have documents, you're going to have papers and photographs that don't necessarily pertain to presidential duties. So what happens when you try to take these out of the White House, right? Photos, documents, things that you might have investigated yourself, like personal ventures that you might have gotten involved in that were not directly tied to your presidential duties. What happens when you take those out of the White House? Right. And obviously the concern on the other side is that you're taking classified documents out and it could be a threat. I get that. But, that's kind of where it gets iffy when you're talking about someone living their life in this environment and everything that they do does not necessarily pertain to, the obligations that they have as president and the access that they might have to sensitive information. Right. You might be worried about a box that he's taken out of the White House and it's full of, like his daughter-in-law said, newspaper clippings, right? But then let's look at it from the other side too. So let's say he was involved in some sort of like criminal activity or he has some type of scheme that he's trying to run where he needs to be able to remove sensitive information. Like what could Trump's motive be to do something like that? And I'm just throwing that out there because I don't know. I'm not plugged in like that. But what if, let's say that the FBI's search of his home and safe, like they had reasonable they had reasonable doubt that the documents that he removed were harmless, right? What could be his motive? What could he gain from doing something like that, right? Like, you know, whenever you look at these types of situations where you have two different opposing groups or people or whatnot, you gotta look at like what does each side have to gain as far as like what one is accusing the other of, right? Who stands to gain? And I'm just trying to, again, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know, right? If anyone can tell me, let me know. But I'm just saying, what does he have to gain as far as like removing classified documents? Could it be the removal of like something that could be potentially incriminating, right? Like that's again, I'm just throwing something out there. You know, maybe there was something that could have been incriminating and then he was trying to, you know, get it out of the way or something. Didn't want anyone to be able to look into it. Like that could be that, but there you go, right? But who knows? So several dozen Trump supporters gathered near Mar-a-Lago, which is steps from the ocean, and where several men stood guard next to a dark sport utility vehicle. Police cars parked in the streets, lights flashing as officers directed traffic and kept onlookers from the gates. Trump supporters honked their horns and played music from their cars as some waved Trump flags or American flags. It's another unjust thing like the made-up impeachment hoaxes, said Jim Whelan, 59, who works in advertising. He held a large sign reading "Fake news is CNN." Trump supporters apparently were expecting him to arrive, as one officer announced on the megaphone. Trump is not returning to Mar-a-Lago tonight. His trip has been canceled. Oh, I bet they were disappointed. So yeah, that was pretty much that article. But man, this is you know, stuff like this is just very, very concerning to me because, you know, I like to dip my toes into the world of conspiracies and the whole New World Order thing and whatnot. And it's one of those things where it's like, you don't want it to be true. You want it to be bullshit. But then you see stuff like this and you connect the dots and just how from the very beginning, I just always think back to when Trump was running for president and how there was so much heat for him. There was so much negativity directed his way. People were so bent out of shape about him being president. And I could not see the justification for the anger and for how upset people were about it, right? I had never seen something like that. And I felt like the media just played such a big role in fueling that fire, you know, and it made me more suspicious of mainstream media, and whether you're talking about like TV or social media, it made me more suspicious of it than ever before. And it made me realize that, you know, just for example, you look at a huge news network like CNN, which was overwhelmingly and adamantly against Trump, but you would think that there would be more of a balance there. You would think there would be like at least like 60% anti-Trump, 40% pro. For this man to become president of the United States, that's a lot of support. You don't become president of a country without significant support or significant corruption. And it never made sense to me how entire news networks could be against this man. How it really showed how imbalanced things really were, how one-sided, how like when the biggest news network in America is so one-sided, you know, that's concerning to me. And when I see stuff like this search or raid, whatever you want to call it, it's just, again, it's another dot. Or it's kind of like that picture of Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia when he's doing like the whole conspiracy thing. Like it's another connection. I'm just like, oh God. Right? This is just it's worrying, but I have my hands full just trying to get my own life together. So I don't always have the time to properly investigate and figure things out. But my whole thing right now is just, I try to keep one ear to what's going on in the world as far as things like that, like things like this, but also, just trying to make sure I continue to develop myself as a man so I can be prepared for whatever might happen in the future. And that's what I encourage everybody to do. Whether you believe in these conspiracies about the FBI or the NWO and, you will eat the bugs and you'll be whatever, right? It's the main thing is, be ready, make sure you're ready mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, material, whatever the fuck, in every way you possibly can, because, who knows what's gonna happen in the immediate future. So yeah, man, just stay strong. That's the message here. Stay strong, guys.